Good evening. Welcome to this special edition of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast, Browns versus Steelers reaction video. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the wintry, windy, blustery, and cold-like conditions of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and as well as on Substack. Hopping right into this episode, guys. This episode, like I said, will be dedicated to the Browns versus Steelers game on Thursday Night Football. Um, Crazy game, crazy game. This was a typical AFC North football game. Crazy game to the uninitiated, but this is what you come to expect from the AFC North this time of year. The brand of football, the style of football that they play. It was a great showing. The snow falling definitely added to it. Kind of had me reminiscing of those old Steelers Browns games with Kelly Holcomb and Tommy Maddox. I'm probably getting into it, aging myself a bit talking about that. But again, phenomenal showing. Was definitely great to see. And hopping right into the game. But again, to get things started, final score was Cleveland 24, Pittsburgh 19. Upset for the Cleveland Browns. Definitely knocking off the Steelers, who were on a winning streak. Steelers fall to 8-3. Browns are now 3-8. Browns aren't pretty much going anywhere, but still a great win to have against a division rival and against a team that's, has playoff aspirations and division aspirations. So great win for the Browns. Even better win for the Baltimore Ravens, if you're really looking at it in hindsight, but nonetheless, getting into it. Getting into this game, Russell Wilson had a great start to this game. He had the offensive rhythm. It seemed like there was a flow to start this game. I don't know what the hell Arthur Smith is doing, and I'll dive further into this episode. But it seems to me that Arthur Smith consistently puts this offense in weird ass situations. He did this in Atlanta, so I'm not shocked. And he also had a resume of doing this in Tampa. So there's no mystery to either one of those, for me at least. But for those of you watching who are not, necessarily Steelers fans or uninitiated to how Arthur Smith runs his offense, just keep this in mind. This is the same man who had Kyle Pitts, who is a young, up-and-coming tight end. Hasn't really lived up to the draft hype that he's been. He was 8th overall pick by the Falcons a few years back. Hasn't really lived up to the draft hype that he has had. However, this year and the year prior, he has shown, he a year with Matt Ryan and this year with Kirk Cousins, he's showing he could be a consistent, durable tight end and put up some decent numbers. While with Arthur Smith, he was pretty much the best receiving left tackle in football. And however you take that is how you take it. But Arthur Smith literally had this man doing more blocking than receiving. And it leads me into that fourth down call on the initial drive of the game. You got Fields coming out on a QB run play where the defense pretty much knows he's running the football. Kind of lost what the hell the decision-making was with that. It's pretty obvious. If you're going to have Justin Fields running that package, you got to at least have a package that's at least more diverse than just him running all the damn time. But so that stalled the drive. But again, I wanted to more or less highlight Russ. Russ was very efficient in this game. He was 21 of 28, 270 yards. He had a touchdown. Had some plays and some drives that stalled where I felt like, they were a bit limited. Some people say it's the weather. I won't use that as an excuse. They play in a division, in a conference, in a city where it could snow, once it hits October, late October, it could snow. So not really using that as an excuse. They just didn't play well. Didn't play efficient enough, even though he did play well enough for them to possibly win the game. Another trend that I'm noticing that I kind of picked up on in this game that I've noticed from several other games, Pittsburgh settles for a lot of field goals. And it's not new. That's not the new news. But what is new news is it will cost them a very important game, if not down the stretch, possibly in the playoffs, if they are unable to score touchdowns. I say it every goddamn week on this show. If you can't score touchdowns and all you do is settle for field goals, you're going to get your ass kicked. And that's what happened in this game. Pittsburgh settled for a lot of field goals. Boswell was 2 of 3, 66%. Not great, but that's what happens when you're depending on your kicker for a lot of points throughout the season. Your offense stalls in a lot of drives. And then you kind of see that's kind of the reason why they got Justin Fields, kind of ingratiating him into different packages. They clearly feel like now they need to step up and do different things with the offense. Clearly, they don't have a spark. There was a ton of drives throughout this game where it was like 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, stall, 3 and out, 3 and out. So not really sure what the game plan is going to be going forward, but it's clearly on tape and it's clearly within their minds that they don't have enough offensively to kind of spark the offense, to keep the offense going on a consistent rhythm. It was also kind of weird to see Pittsburgh as a team play. The first game I've seen in a long while where they were out physical. They couldn't stop the Browns on 4th down. Cleveland was 4-4. They did a great job of taking T.J. Watt away. And I'm looking at my stats here correctly to see here. T.J. Watt was, here we go. 4 tackles, 4 total tackles, 1 solo, no quarterback hits, no tackles for a loss. 1 tackle for a loss, excuse me. So completely ineffective. They did a great job of chipping him, getting him completely out of the game, not allowing him to dictate the game in any way, shape, or form. Going a bit further on offense, like I said, I loved how Russell passed the ball around. The ball distribution was beautiful. And even in the inclement weather, I loved how they were passing the ball around. 21 receptions, 270 yards. You had 1 touchdown. But they sucked running the football. I mean, absolutely fucking sucked running the football. To give you the raw numbers here, it's quite revealing. They had 34 carries and 120 yards. Now you're thinking, oh, that's not bad. That means they were literally averaging, and I got it here, 3.5 yards per carry. That's pretty damn bad. Najee Harris had 16 carries, 41 yards. And Jaylen Warren had 11 carries, 45 yards for 1 touchdown. And that was literally like within the 3 yards, within the red zone. It was bad. Steelers could not run the ball. Pittsburgh knew that they needed to run the ball to be efficient in this game. Cleveland knew they needed it. And Jim Schwartz had a tremendous game plan. And Jim Schwartz completely took away the run game away from Pittsburgh. I mean, it was obvious. They could not run the ball. I mean, hell, Justin Fields trick plays. You got Cordell Patterson running laterals and shit. Russell Wilson even had to scramble a bit. It hasn't been working. The rushing game was just not there in this game. It was pretty pathetic to see. I just thought that was pretty startling. And especially coming from an aspect where Pittsburgh outgained Cleveland in every statistical category. Like, it's insane. Going further, I mean, it just seemed like Pittsburgh didn't want to be out there. And I don't know if it was the weather. I don't know if they just seemed like they weren't going to win the game late. So maybe they just felt like, fuck it, we don't want to be here. But when you have 6 penalties for 39 yards, doesn't seem like a lot. But one of those key penalties being Beanie Bishop getting a dumbass, and I mean dumbass penalty. What was the penalty? Delay of game. Doing a little bullshit to delay the stall of the Browns getting set up on offense. It was just stupid. And, that winds up leading to Nick Chubb running it in for a touchdown. Again, dumb as fuck. Didn't need to happen. Something that wound up happening, though. Something that's going to wind up costing this team later down the road. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the tirade between George Pickens and Greg Newsome. What the fuck was that, George Pickens? I have no idea. And I've listened to several former NFL players comment on this, whether it was Rodney Harrison, whether it was other safeties that have played the game and have commented, whether on Twitter or social media. That was some of the most lackadaisical fucking running I've ever seen by a wide receiver. I mean, he literally looked like he was ready to tussle instead of catching the ball. And then you see the comments here by Greg Newsome kind of lends towards that. But, it also shows a bit of immaturity on George Pickens' side. Let's be real. We know the Browns fucking suck. But when you sit here and you say shit like you don't think they're really a good team, that the weather kind of helped, that's weak sauce. That's weak sauce like a motherfucker. And you know that. Like, that's not shit you don't even say shit like that. Especially when you literally have, and I quote, 4 catches for 48 yards on 7 targets. Don't say no shit like that. Don't say no shit like that. It just looks bad. Gotta get it together. Gotta get it together. It just makes me also think back to those, like, the way that game played out, and even though the Steelers came back late, sometimes you kind of, when you're watching them play, and maybe it's me, maybe it's somebody, because like I said, I'm 36. I grew up seeing, the transition from Cordell Stewart to Tommy Maddox to Ben Roethlisberger, to the mix and mash of what it's been the past few years. And it's been real crazy to me to notice that, like, when you watch the games that the Steelers are atypical of winning, you notice now they lose. And maybe they took this game for granted. Maybe they took this team for granted. It's very possible. I'm not saying this out of the realm of possibility. But those guys that they had at the wide receiver position, those physical dogs, they're not there anymore. It's been like that for a while. I mean, whether it was Hines Ward, whether it was Antoine Randall, whether it was AB, they don't have dogs on the outside no more. And George Pickens, like I said, he's a very good receiver. I like him a lot. I think he has a lot of talent, but he's very immature. He's very immature. And he has so much talent that I feel like he could be so much better than the numbers that he puts up at times. And I get sometimes it's been inconsistent quarterback play, but fuck, man, Russell Wilson's throwing you the ball this year. You got to get open. 7 targets, 4 catches. And you're talking about they got lucky. It was the weather. Come on, man. Calvin Austin had 3 receptions, 78 yards. And he had a touchdown. Guys ain't there no more, man. They're just not as physical as they used to be, and it shows. Like I said, Cleveland, shout out to the Browns for winning the game. I don't want to harp too much on what the Steelers did and didn't do. Shout out to the Browns for winning the game. Like most of the season, it was ugly, inconsistent football. It's the Browns. Whether it was Deshaun Watson, who just was, let's be honest, the worst quarterback in football, who then, you get Jameis Winston, who, we all know Jameis. He tries hard, he's serviceable. He's going to win some games, he's going to lose some, kind of just, goes where the wind blows at that point. But they found a way to win, and that was the ultimate point about this game. Much of the first half, like I said, they were able to get 10 points on the board, but they really didn't have much going. It was pretty inconsistent, just like Pittsburgh. Was a lot of drives that were kind of stalling, weren't really going anywhere, weren't really, getting anything out of it. They were just kind of like stagnant. Went into halftime like that with the 10 points, so didn't really do much. And then to start off the second half, you kind of felt like the Browns were starting to turn into the Browns again. That Cedric Tillman fumble here. I mean, that, on the NFL highlight reel, if you guys checking out NFL.com, they call it a spin cycle hit. I call it Cedric Tillman. What the fuck are you doing? Get your ass down. Why in the hell are you trying to, what was that? What was that? I don't even understand. You got the yards, get down. You didn't even have the ball position properly, and that shit got, it was horrible. It was horrible. And then to add to that, the fumbling. I mean, they had 2 fumbles lost, one by Tillman, one by Jameis late in the game. I'll touch on that. And 3 altogether as a team. So, again, didn't play well. They literally got outplayed most of this game. Out statistically every category, the Steelers, every major category, the Steelers played better than them. But they just played sloppy and didn't do the crucial things late to win the game. But what Cleveland really started to show promise is when right after that fumble by Tillman, they held Pittsburgh to a field goal. That was the first turning point, in my opinion. Then, again, though Jameis didn't play great and he showed heart, 18 to 27, 219 yards, interception. The ball distribution by Jameis was what was magnificent. 18 receptions, 219 yards in inclement weather. He was laser. He was pinpoint accurate. He was getting the ball in spots. Even at times when he wasn't accurate, the pass rush was getting to him where he just, he got a little skittish, but he did the most that he could. I got to give him credit for that. But his heart and grit is what helped them really win this game. And also the key play made where, the diving end zone play. I mean, that, like, seeing it here, I mean, it was terrific. I mean, he literally, he's hit from two different angles, and he just, he gets slammed into the end zone, still holds onto the ball and scores. Magnificent play. And that was on a 4th down. Keep that in mind. He leapt into the end zone. That was a 4th down play. So that was do or die. So got to give him credit there. And then even his late interception, continuing on the play of Jameis Winston, even his late interception, that didn't kill this team, which I thought was a second turning point, because then at that point you felt like, all right, Pittsburgh's going to get points off this. They didn't. Pittsburgh eventually wound up getting points late, but at that point, you got wide receivers not even really fighting for the ball. Don't really know what the fuck was going on there. So, that was pretty much in a nutshell. But I wanted to make sure I touched on some two Browns players that were really key. I spoke on Jameis, but I really want to speak on this other one. Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is the best defensive end in football. I've always been astonished with Myles Garrett. I've always thought Myles Garrett has been a great player. I just thought he's always been on a bad team. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Like I said, being an Eagles fan, we played the Browns this year. He had an amazing play where he literally hurdled the whole fucking, field goal line, special teams line, hurdled it, blocked the kick, which led to a touchdown for the Browns. He makes plays like that, throughout the season, makes game-wrecking, fuck-up-the-game type plays. And, I mean, this guy is just a fucking monster, a freak of nature. And I love the fact that J.J. Watt talked shit before this game. They got him riled up because he truly showed that, like, there's nobody that can stop me. If I every game that I go out there, like, I'm double-teamed, I'm damn near triple-teamed, I'm chipped all the time, and I'm still getting all these sacks. The guy is the best defensive player in the league, in my opinion. No disrespect to Watt, but after what the fuck I've seen from Myles Garrett this season and in the past several years, there's no argument, in my opinion. He's the best defensive end in the league. And then that last guy I want to touch on is Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy has been a guy who, to me, has gotten a lot of hype. He has that French word, and any of my friends or family, my wife, she laughs whenever I say this, but potential to me is a French word. And people say, why do you call it a French word? It's a French word because, in English, what it really means is you haven't done shit yet. So Jerry Jeudy's one of those guys, hasn't done shit yet. And drafted high, a lot of promise, didn't work out in Denver. Cleveland traded for him, breath of fresh air, new start. Hopefully everything works out. And he was kind of finding his way. He really hadn't had a bunch of standout games this year. But this game, in my opinion, this game was really the standout game that really stuck out to me from Jerry Jeudy. Amazing performance, 6 for 85, 6 receptions, 85 yards. And that was on 6 targets, which I thought was clutch. In a game like this kind of semi-justifies why they trade for a guy like that. If he's able to continue to grow and continue to mature and play like that on a more consistent basis, the sky's the limit for this offense. Because he showed you that he has game-breaking ability and game-breaking speed, and he can separate and get away from guys. And it's amazing to see. He just has to be more consistent, and he's not consistent enough. But, ultimately, got to give it to the Browns. Like I said, it's not going to be end of the road for the Steelers, but definitely was a bad loss. Keeps Baltimore in the division race, and kind of just makes things a little bit more interesting. But that's going to do it for this episode. Like I said, this video was pretty much Browns versus Steelers reaction video. I thank you guys for always watching. Again, like, share, and subscribe. Check out the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Substack. Take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend.